Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 1203. Chapter. Within the vast and ever-shifting currents of the sect, the Hua faction stood like an ancient mountain, unyielding, immense, and backed by a foundation that had been forged through countless years. Its influence spread far and wide, touching every corner where whispers could travel. From the second day onward, murmurs began to stir once more across Eagle's Beak Mountain. The truth, long buried beneath layers of distortion, resurfaced like a hidden dragon breaking through the clouds. It spoke of how Ling Han had single-handedly obtained 4 drops of thousand-source true fluid, carving his name into history with a feat none had achieved before. This truth had not been absent before. It had merely been smothered, crushed beneath a tide of accusations that painted Ling Han as a ruthless killer who seized treasure through bloodshed. Yet now, with the Hua faction stepping forward, the balance of voices shifted. Just as the Gao faction had once dominated the narrative and shaped public perception with overwhelming force, the Hua faction now answered in kind, restoring another side of the story to the light. Such was the weight of a great faction, something no lone individual could hope to rival. Even figures like He Tao and Shen Juer, young king tiers of exceptional standing, found their voices swallowed by the storm. Against factions that had endured for tens of thousands of years, their strength, no matter how remarkable, was but a flicker against a blazing inferno. Thus, the once one-sided storm of public opinion fractured into 2 opposing tides. One side continued to drag Ling Han's name through the mud, branding him a villain. The other raised him up, reshaping him into a figure of brilliance and merit. Yet in truth, what mattered was no longer the facts themselves. What mattered was power. Which faction held greater strength would determine what the world chose to believe. And just as the storm reached a fragile equilibrium, another force entered the fray. The Hu faction. Its founder, Hu Xiangdi, was the 9th disciple of the Venerable Trinity. A solitary figure with no descendants, he had only one disciple to carry his legacy, a woman named Lei Linglong. Her beauty was said to rival the moon itself, her presence captivating all who beheld her. Yet despite her elegance, the stance of the Hu faction was clear and merciless. They would strike against Ling Han. By now, however, Ling Han himself had become little more than a spark within a greater conflagration. This was no longer merely about him. It had become a battlefield where the disciples of the Venerable Trinity displayed their strength, each vying for supremacy. At its core, it was a struggle for the singular qualification, the right to inherit the true legacy. Each faction sought to rise above the others, to trample their rivals beneath their feet. Ling Han's situation had simply provided the perfect excuse, a convenient flame to ignite their ambitions. With the Hua faction's involvement, the clash had begun in earnest. Soon after, more disciples stepped forward. The Tai faction, the Lang faction, the Ni faction, the Jian faction, and the Lu faction all joined the contest. Of the 9 great disciples, 8 had already chosen their sides. The balance formed a precarious symmetry. 4 factions aligned against 4. Only the Q faction remained silent, their intentions veiled in mystery. Who could have imagined that a mere Mountain River tier disciple would ignite such a grand conflict, that he would become the axis upon which the ambitions of the 9 great disciples turned? Yet even amidst this chaos, the Hua faction's stance shifted. Previously, Ji Yunji had conveyed their offer to purchase a single drop of thousand-source true fluid at a great price, and in exchange, shield Ling Han from the oppressive force of the Gao faction. But now, with the alliance expanding to include the Tai, Ni, and Lu factions, the situation had grown more complex. Ji Yunji returned once more, her expression tinged with apology. "Senior brother Han," she began gently, "to stand against the alliance of the Gao, Lang, Jiang, and Hu factions, young master had no choice but to seek the aid of the other 3 factions. However, they cannot assist us without compensation." Her gaze wavered slightly as she continued. "Young master hopes that senior brother Han can offer all 4 drops of thousand-source true fluid." The moment those words fell, the air around Ling Han seemed to chill. Sensing the shift in his expression, Ji Yunji hurried to add, "Of course, young master would not treat you unfairly. Each drop will be purchased at the price of 1,000 true origin stones." For a brief moment, silence reigned. Then, Ling Han almost laughed. Was this not outright robbery? Back in the chaotic star's majestic empire, he had earned over 2,000 true origin stones simply by selling alchemical pills. Yet now, a treasure as rare and precious as the thousand-source true fluid, a treasure coveted even by heavenly body tier elites, was being valued at merely 1,000 per drop. This was beyond insulting. Your young master, Ling Han said slowly, shaking his head, has quite the sense of humor. In that instant, clarity dawned upon him. Hua faction, Gao faction. It made no difference. Beneath their lofty names, they were no different from beasts locked in a vicious struggle, each seeking to devour the other. And he had foolishly placed his hopes upon one of them. How naive. Ji Yunji's heart trembled with guilt, yet she could not defy the will of her master. Steeling herself, she reached forward, pressing her hand lightly against Ling Han's palm. Senior brother Han, she said softly, young Master Hua will compensate you through other means. Ling Han's expression turned cold. He withdrew his hand immediately. Hehe, junior sister Ji, he said, his tone distant. It would be best if you kept a respectful distance. His gaze sharpened, piercing straight into her heart. And allow me to offer you a piece of advice, he continued. A man who treats you as an object to be offered at will, is he truly worthy of your life? The words struck like a blade. Ji Yunji's face paled, then flushed with a storm of emotions. Shame, anger, and humiliation intertwined. Hua Yangwen had instructed her to use her charms if necessary, to placate Ling Han. Though she had resisted inwardly, she had no choice but to obey. And now, her dignity had been laid bare. There is no need for senior brother Han to concern himself with my affairs, she replied coldly, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Just give me your answer. If you hand over the thousand-source true fluid, you can have me. At that moment, a sudden voice burst into the scene. Undress! 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 The old ginseng appeared out of nowhere, its eyes gleaming with unrestrained excitement. Girl, hurry and take off your clothes. Let Grandpa Ginseng have a good look. Get lost. Ling Han did not hesitate. His foot shot out, sending the old ginseng flying through the air. Ah! It cried miserably. You ungrateful brat! Kicking me away once I'm no longer useful. You hog everything for yourself and won't even leave scraps for Grandpa Ginseng. How heartless! How despicable! Ji Yunji's lips twitched uncontrollably. What was this creature? Ling Han waved dismissively, his patience gone. Go back, he said flatly. There is no need for you to come again. Since your young master has no sincerity, our previous agreement is null and void. Senior brother Han. Ji Yunji's expression darkened. You have already offended the Gao faction. If you now offend the Hua faction as well, your path within the sect will become unbearably difficult. Ling Han merely smiled, calm and fearless. You speak as if the entire world belongs to your factions, he said lightly. If you say less now, I might only dislike the Hua faction. His eyes turned sharp as a drawn blade. But if you continue, then the Hua faction will also be added to my list of future targets. A faint, confident smile appeared on his lips. Let me remind you, anyone on that list will not meet a good end. His words carried the weight of unshakable conviction. There would come a day when he would step beyond the heavenly body tier and enter the eternal river tier. When that time arrived, even the venerable Trinity would not be able to stop him from seeking justice. He, the Rain Emperor, Feng Po Yun, Ding Ping, each of them was a genius destined to shake the heavens. Given enough time, they would pierce the sky itself. No one had the right to suppress them simply because of their youth. Ji Yunji faltered under his imposing presence. After a long silence, she finally spoke, her voice subdued. Since senior brother Han insists on his decision, I will report everything truthfully to young master. Farewell. With that, she turned and departed. The negotiation had shattered beyond repair. There was nothing left to say. Brat, you're truly foolish, the old ginseng grumbled as it returned, its expression full of regret. A beauty offered herself, and you didn't even take the opportunity. Ling Han sighed. You've been born into the wrong body, he replied. If you enjoy such sights so much, why not stay in the public baths? Heh, the old ginseng snickered mischievously. And who says Grandpa Ginseng hasn't already been there? Ling Han shook his head, unwilling to continue arguing. With the Hua faction now pushed away, even if they did not directly align with the Gao faction, The situation remained dire. 4 factions now stood against him. And once matters had reached this point, there was no turning back. Whether Ling Han was guilty or innocent no longer mattered. They would nail him to the cross regardless. Otherwise, the 4 great factions would lose face. Even a single Gao faction had once suffocated him with pressure. Now, 4 stood against him. The storm had only just begun. 47 days still remained before the grand auction would commence, yet the currents beneath the surface had already begun to churn like a storm gathering beyond the horizon. Ling Han understood this clearly. The Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao world was not one where fairness held sway. Strength alone dictated the outcome. And the Gao faction, like a lurking predator, would never allow the auction to proceed smoothly. Once the thousand-source true fluid entered the hands of another, it would undoubtedly fall into the possession of a heavenly body tier elite, or a power backed by such a figure. Wealth of that magnitude was beyond the reach of ordinary cultivators. Faced with such existences, even the arrogant Gao faction would hesitate. To attempt a robbery would be both humiliating and uncertain in outcome, unless Venerable Trinity himself made a move. But if such a supreme being had been willing to act, there would have been no need for an auction at all. Thus, the conclusion was inevitable. Before the day of the auction arrived, they would strike. They would seize the thousand-source true fluid from Ling Han's hands by force. As for how the 4 drops would be divided among themselves, or what fate would ultimately befall Ling Han, that was a matter internal to the Gao faction. The only thing that mattered now was securing the treasure first. Standing beneath the quiet sky, Ling Han's gaze turned cold. In these past days, I've already noticed shadows lurking in secret, he murmured inwardly. They've begun watching me. A faint, dangerous smile touched his lips. So, the Gao faction is finally ready to reveal their killing intent. His thoughts flowed like a calm river, yet beneath them surged a tide of sharp calculation. In just a few more days, the sect will summon me for a trial, to investigate the deaths of Shi Ming and the others. His expression turned slightly mocking. A farce, nothing more. But this world has always been ruled by strength. Now that the Hua faction has withdrawn, unless Venerable Trinity intervenes, I stand alone against the storm. Even Ling Han himself had not anticipated matters escalating to such a degree. At the time, he had merely fought with everything he had to protect what was rightfully his. Yet that single act had given the Gao faction the opportunity they needed to twist the narrative, to pin the deaths of Shi Ming and the others upon him. Though there was indeed some connection, the root cause lay in the Gao faction's own greed. They came to rob me, and I am expected to hand over my treasures with a smile? A cold snort echoed within his mind. If that were the case, what would be the purpose of cultivation? I might as well bow my head and live as a coward. Yet defiance alone was not enough. How should I survive this ordeal? Ling Han pondered for a long time, weighing every possibility like a seasoned strategist examining the battlefield. Finally, clarity flashed in his eyes. No matter whether it is the Gao faction or the Hua faction, what they truly desire is the thousand-source true fluid. A decisive resolve settled within him. From today onward, I will remain within the Black Tower and not take a single step outside. I will endure until the day of the auction, and then discard the thousand-source true fluid at that moment. His gaze sharpened. Once that happens, the pressure upon me will diminish greatly. At that point, perhaps only Gao Huang will remain, clinging to me like a rabid dog. A chilling smile spread across his face. Gao Huang, though we have never met, you should feel honored. His voice turned as cold as frost. You will be the first person I intend to kill, before even seeing you face to face. Forced into such a corner, Ling Han could only retreat into the Black Tower for safety. The humiliation burned fiercely within him. After escorting Fan Ru to Hu Feiyun's residence, he gathered Ding Ping, Feng Po Yun, Shui Yanyu, and the others, instructing them not to seek him out for the next few days. Then, without hesitation, he entered the Black Tower and resumed his cultivation of the star-plucking step. Time flowed quietly. But after merely 2 days, the Gao faction's patience snapped. They unleashed their move. A summons was issued. Ling Han was to stand trial, to investigate the truth behind the deaths of Shi Ming and the others. Yet when they came to seize him, Ling Han had vanished. The Gao faction was caught completely off guard. Under the pretext of sect regulations, they tore through his residence, searching every inch, yet no trace of him could be found. This drove them into near madness. They had already stationed watchers at every entrance, ensuring that the moment Ling Han stepped outside, he would be placed under surveillance. And yet, those tasked with watching swore solemnly that Ling Han had never left. Then where had he gone? How had he disappeared? Ling Han had not been convicted of any crime. As a seed disciple, he retained the freedom to come and go. There was no rule preventing him from leaving his quarters. Thus, the Gao faction could not treat him as a fugitive, nor could they issue wanted notices throughout the sect. It formed a perfect, infuriating cycle. To declare him a criminal, they needed a verdict. To obtain a verdict, they needed him to appear. But since he did not appear, the trial could not proceed. Thus, he remained innocent. And so, the Gao faction could only deploy their own forces to search in secret. Other factions might have joined the hunt, but none could command the entire sect to conduct a large-scale search. Meanwhile, within the boundless space of the Black Tower, Ling Han cultivated in serene isolation. With abundant alchemical pills and true origin stones at his disposal, his progress did not falter in the slightest. Beneath the reincarnation tree, his comprehension of the regulations of heaven and earth deepened with each passing day, like roots burrowing deeper into the essence of existence. At last, the day of the auction arrived. Within the Black Tower, Ling Han's aura surged. He had silently advanced to the peak stage of the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. At this moment, he possessed the strength to contend with opponents at the low extreme of the sun-moon tier. "I have never been this powerful before," he murmured softly, feeling the vast strength coursing through his body. Only now did he truly understand why Shen Juer and the others had once been so confident. Had they unleashed their full strength back then, suppressing him would have been effortless. Of course, suppression and injury were two entirely different matters. As for the star-plucking step, his eyes gleamed. "I have grasped a portion of its essence. Combined with my current origin power, I can unleash bursts of speed that surpass most Sun-Moon tier cultivators." A faint smile appeared. "It is time." He stepped out of the Black Tower. Calmly, he opened the doors and walked into the outside world. Pooh! The guards stationed outside nearly had his eyes pop out of their sockets. His mind blanked completely, as if struck by lightning. They had been watching this place day after day, merely going through the motions after countless fruitless searches. Who could have imagined that Ling Han would simply walk out from within? To them, it was as if a ghost had materialized before their eyes. By the time they regained their senses, Ling Han had already walked some distance away. "Stop right there!" they shouted hastily. Ling Han merely smiled. "Stop? Because you say so?" Not only did he ignore them, he accelerated instead, his figure turning into a streak of light. "Quick, send a signal. We've found Han Lin," one of them cried out urgently. The other immediately drew a signal flare. With a sharp crack, a brilliant Gao character exploded into the sky, blazing like a banner of war. In an instant, the sect stirred. Sun-Moon tier elites descended like falling stars, rushing toward the signal. Mountain River tier cultivators followed behind, though their speed could not compare. Upon learning of Ling Han's appearance, they were both delighted and alarmed. Delighted, because their prey had finally emerged. Alarmed, because today was the day of the auction. "That brat must be heading to deliver the goods. Intercept him." "Old you, we split up. I'll follow his trail. You head straight to the auction." "Understood." Two Sun-Moon tier elites separated without hesitation, brimming with confidence. To them, capturing Ling Han was a trivial matter. The one who pursued Ling Han was Zhu Tianchu. Previously, he had suffered a secret loss at Ling Han's hands, and the grudge had festered ever since. Now, he intended to personally capture Ling Han, and make him pay dearly. His speed was terrifying. Though Ling Han twisted and turned, attempting to obscure his trail, how could such tricks deceive a Sun-Moon tier expert? Zhu Tianchu followed closely, closing the distance with each breath. Soon, Ling Han's figure came into clear view ahead. "Ha! Han Lin, you cannot escape!" Zhu Tianchu roared, his voice filled with malice. Ling Han turned his head slightly, a faint smile on his lips. Still making threats? Have you already forgotten the lesson I taught you before? Those words struck like a blade. Zhu Tianchou's face contorted with fury. This brat dared to bring up that humiliation again. With a furious roar, his speed surged as he shot forward like a blazing comet. Brat! You won't escape this time! Ling Han's eyes flashed. That remains to be seen. In the next instant, his figure blurred. Shoo! He erupted into an astonishing speed, so fast that it rivaled Zhu Tianchou's pursuit, not falling behind in the slightest. Star-plucking step.